So Jaelyn, if you don't mind telling us a little bit about yourself before you get started on your topic today,
Okay.
I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Okay. So I started 2 years ago in January 2015, and I was at like the lowest point in my life, and I'll talk about that in the topic that I'm talking about. But basically, our marriage was like at the worst it has ever been. I was overweight. We had no money. Our marriage had literally just exploded in the stress of it. I stopped watching my niece, and that was $500 a month where we already were not paying bills. So I like freaked out, like, holy crap, what am I going to do? And I watched my coach for 18 months, and finally, like, I had been debating about doing it for a few months. And so that finally like pushed me over the edge. So I started coaching in January, and I just shared the heck out of my journey. And vulnerability was something that I picked up on about 3 months into my journey. And I honestly attribute that to where I am today. I was able to reach 5-star elite by the end of my first year. And that was a huge, huge aspect of it. So I always felt like there was something I was supposed to do to help people. I always wanted to help people be healthy, but I didn't know how. And I'm quite a hippie, and that's really hard to convince people to be a hippie. And so this fit perfect because it's like the mesh between being a hippie and just not taking care of yourself. So I jumped right in, and it's completely transformed our lives, like including our marriage and stuff. And so I'm going to just jump into my topic, which is about vulnerability. And I actually just barely listened to Ashley Malstead's talk because when I tried to, it like cut me off. I was so mad. And so today I was like, I'm going to listen to this, make sure I'm not like repeating everything she says, because I did this. What I'm going to do for you guys, I did this for Lindy Galt last month. And I was like, heck yeah, because Ashley said a quote in it that I had in my thing. So I'm like, I'm on the right track. Like, she's number one right now. So apparently, like there is something to this. So I actually have like slides. So I'm going to share a screen. And can you guys see my screen? Okay. So I titled it Victory and Vulnerability, Take Your Life to the Next Level. And the reason I even titled it that was because I really feel like vulnerability doesn't just help your business. It actually will help move your business forward. And so that's why I titled it that way. So let's jump right into it. So the vulnerability paradox by Brene Brown. A lot of the quotes obviously are going to come from her because she's the queen of vulnerability, and she just completely transforms how you look at vulnerability. And she said, it's the first thing I look for in you and the last thing I want you to see in me. Okay. So that hit home pretty good because if you think about it, anybody you connect to, they're vulnerable to some extent. And I think about people in this business, and first person I automatically thought of was Lindsay Matway, because I was like, let's be honest, like she's perfect Barbie doll. And when I first started, I'm like, that's why she's successful. She's like the spitting image of what you should look like. And it wasn't until I listened to her story that I was like, holy shiz, like it's her story that connects us to her. So she was willing to put that out there. I personally probably would have judged her as like non-coach person, been like, oh, it's just easy for her because she looks like a Barbie doll. But because she shares her story, anybody can relate to that. And it makes her that much more connected, if you will. And so I want you to think back on anybody who you really look up to, role models, celebrities. They're all vulnerable to some extent. They don't put on the perfect facade. And the whole point of our business is to build connections. So vulnerability is the only bridge to build connections. A lot of times we talk about be relatable. And the definition of relatable is to feel connected or sympathetic to. And I think sometimes we separate vulnerability and relatability. Like we don't want to mesh the two, but they actually are synonymous. Okay. So when we say be relatable, you have to be vulnerable to some extent to connect with people. Connection is the energy that is created between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued, when they can give and receive without judgment. So when we're vulnerable, we're opening up that connection for them to feel like we understand them. So it instantly builds trust to some degree, even if they're not necessarily going through. It shows them that we're not perfect, and it opens up that bridge for them to cross and feel like they can trust us with whatever they need help in. So obviously our goal in this business is to make people know us. Exposure is a big part of the business. The more exposure you get, like Ashley Malstead, she had a viral photo that obviously helped her business. Okay. Not only was it viral, it was vulnerable. That's why it went viral. So everybody all of a sudden knows who she is because she let people know her. And I'm not just talking about like you're a mom and, you know, you stay at home or you have a job, or it's like actually know you. Do they know your fears? Do they know your weaknesses? Do they know your demons or your gremlins like she talked about? One of the biggest things I've noticed with people when I talk about this, especially newer coaches, is vulnerability scares the shiz out of them because they're worried about being judged, or it's all related to fear to some extent. Most likely it's the fear of judgment, which obviously fear is not real. And I can tell you that since doing this, it's actually done the opposite for my business and for me personally. It's actually taken away the ability of others to judge me. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So you have to get over that fear and realize that you're actually going to open up a lot of avenues for people to relate to you, and it's going to actually increase your business if you do that. Okay, so there's a quote I wanted to say real quick, and it says, it's by Alfred Hitchcock. When we think we have been hurt by someone in the past, we build up defenses to protect ourselves from being hurt in the future. So the fearful past becomes a fearful future, and the past and the future become one. So we're constantly living in fear, which, hi, that sucks, right? And my biggest vulnerability right now, I've talked about on these calls, is we talk about our marriage issues. And a lot of people do not want to talk about that. And for me, not talking about it, we had a lot of fears that the other person involved in our situation was going to come out and say things. And all of a sudden we'd be having to try and explain. And that was a huge fear of ours. But at the same time, we didn't want to talk about what was going on in our marriage because that's embarrassing, or people are going to judge us. And it took about 2 years for us to become comfortable with actually talking about what has happened. But it's actually done the opposite. It's completely freeing because now no one can have dirt on us. Okay. So everybody wants dirt. Everyone wants gossip. So if you offer that first, it can no longer be gossip. They can't spread it. It can't hurt you because you're the one who has spread it yourself. Right. So, there was a situation where my husband we were down at another job, and he has like lower back issues. And so he's like sucked it up and started doing yoga. And he is like the biggest mocker of yoga ever until he started doing it. And he's like, oh my gosh, it actually works. So he took this picture with him holding yoga blocks, and he talked about how like, dude, it actually helps. Well, someone at his work got that photo and like spread it around. And like they were trying to use it to like tease him and taunt him. And he was like, you guys, I'm the one who took the photo. I'm the one who posted that. You're not like teasing me. You can't make fun of me because I'm the one who offered you that information. So it totally deflated the situation because they're like, oh, well, okay. And then they started asking about yoga. So it's funny when you offer all of this dirt, it takes away that ability for others to judge you. And it no longer becomes something that you feel like you have to hide or hope no one finds out about. So let me look at my notes real quick, make sure I'm not skipping anything. Okay, so let's go to, there was a story, but you guys I think all understand how vulnerability works. A story about a guy who had cancer, and everybody told him just to put on a happy face and pretend like nothing's wrong and it would be easier to deal with. And he found that he was very isolated and he felt very alone. And he said, he eventually came out and told like close friends and family what was going on. And he said, the people in my life during the challenging time were invaluable. By reaching out and feeling vulnerable and letting others in, I feel more connected and confident that I could get through this. Today, I still have an olive-sized mass on the right side of my brain, but it is no longer my foe. Rather, it has become the greatest blessing I could ever ask for. Sometimes all it takes is to connect with someone else, and else is sharing our vulnerable story, lending an ear or a shoulder, and just being present for them. We often tend to dismiss the admirable components of vulnerability, where it can manifest in love and happiness. But in reality, being vulnerable is necessary in order to establish a relationship with others. When going through something stifling, sharing your experience can only spawn connection. It can also spawn connection as well. So let's go on to how we can be vulnerable. So the very start is obviously to let people in, like, who are you? So not just, like I said, the surfacey stuff. Identify like 10 quirks. You can do 5, you can do whatever, but the more quirks, the better, just because it'll give you more things to post about. So I'm a yeller. I talk about how I'm a yeller. And that was another freeing moment because I was like, now if I see my neighbors, it's not like I have to pretend nothing's wrong. Like they know I'm a yeller and I will own up to it. I I hate the dishes. I homeschool. I'm a hippie. I hate to work out. That's actually something I capitalize on, because I think a lot of people see us and they're like, well, I don't love to work out, so I can never do that. Like, no, I hate to work out, but I do it because I know I'm supposed to, and it's healthy, and I need it for living a long and healthy life. And so these are just a couple examples of like talking about these quirks, if you will. And another thing is your reality. Your profile is your reality show. So you want to make sure that you're posting and you're giving enough dirt that people want to come back and see what you're doing. Like, okay, so what is she doing today? So you can use it like a journal, but you share those quirks as you're talking about your day. So this one, I have a shirt that says Mom Life. I put it on, I walk upstairs, and my son had cut up sight words all over. And I'm like, my shirt's quite fitting for today. Okay, super simple, not a long post. People can relate to that. This was about, sorry, my kids are so loud right now. This post is about finding a new restaurant that had good food. So I'm talking about you can still eat out, you can still eat well, but I also was talking about how, why did I do that? Hold on. I was also talking about how we were going to the mall that day, and family day is my favorite day. So they know what I'm doing that day, but I'm also sprinkling in eating clean and all of that stuff. And this one was literally about hating to work out. And I got sick and I couldn't work out, and I thought I was going to lose my mind, which for me is a huge thing because I don't like to work out. And so I just talked about how, it improves my mood and improves my relationship. And so I just talked about how hating it, but I miss it. And this is what I've noticed from actually doing it. So just being, just talking about those 10 quirks is going to help people relate to you. And the whole point of that is that if people come across that, they automatically think of you. So arrows are a part of my brand. It's part of my logo. And I've talked about it enough that I have random people who are not coaches or customers sending me stuff in the mail, tagging me in posts. Hey, you should totally get this. Or I thought of you, here it is. And so when they see it, they automatically think of you. Okay. So that's the whole point with the 10 quirks too. Let them get to know you. So like the quirkier, the better, and talk about it over and over and over again. Okay. Tell stories. So you need to describe as though you are writing a book. A lot of us get like in professor mode, and we talk as though we're writing some English paper, and it's very, very informal, and you can't connect to that. So my sister will literally do Siri and like talk to herself in a text, and then it types it all out for her, and she goes back and punctuates it. It sounds exactly as though she was talking. And you talk as though you're talking to one person. So if you were right there in front of that person, how would you tell them what you're going to post about? How would you describe this story? You need to use emotional and descriptive words. That is what will connect people to your story, is when you're talking about those emotions. So it can't ever just be surfacey. It needs to be very, very descriptive so that they feel like they're exactly where you are. They can relate to that. Those are those sympathetic or empathetic words. Share exact thoughts and feelings. So I had a coach who kind of just very surfacey talks about how, she had shoulder surgeries, and she was struggling with trying to feel like she had an identity, and she struggled with anxiety, and that's all she would ever say. And she's like, I'm not getting any traction. I'm like, well, yeah, you had shoulder surgery and you had anxiety, but that's not, people still don't connect to that. Like, you need to give us exact thoughts and situations. And so she went on to write a post about how it was 2 a.m. She was sitting in her recliner chair because she couldn't even sleep in a bed, and she woke up with the most irrational thoughts. And she listed some thoughts that she had that people who have anxiety would understand. So you have to describe it in those descriptive words that puts them in the situation. So go through the questions of who, where, what, when, how, and make sure that as you're writing your post, you're covering all of those topics. So this was a post by my sister. She just had a baby in November. She's one of my diamonds, and like she had overwhelming like paralysis anxiety. Like, is the baby normal? Is she breathing? It was taking over her life. And so this post was a perfect example of all these. So I wanted to read it. So she said, tonight we were over at Sunday dinner, and I had to take a break to come and feed Joelle. When I sat down and started feeding her, I had an overwhelming feeling of emotions that came over me. The last time I sat down in the chair, I couldn't even breathe. My anxiety was so strong. I felt like I was sinking in my dark ocean of anxiety inside my mind. My daughter's latch was awful. I had so much anxiety she wasn't getting enough milk because of her latch. I was scared of humans, any and all humans. I didn't want anyone to look at me or my baby. In this before photo, I had cried so hard because my anxiety was suffocating me. I can't help but feel so much gratitude for what I have been through these past few months. They have molded me with the patience molded me to have patience with myself as a mom. I think this was a lesson Heavenly Father wanted me to learn early on. I'm not going to be perfect, but I can always do my best. Today, as I sit here, I can breathe, you guys. I still have a voice of anxiety in my head, but I can shut it down. I can feel myself present again. The girl in the before photo felt so lost and alone and scared and emotional. Postpartum anxiety and depression are a real thing. I have struggled with it. I'm still struggling with it, but I have come so much further than I ever thought possible from the before photos. I can see it in my face. I can feel it throughout my body. It's changing from one thing, exercise, and I'm grateful I can breathe, I can live, I can have energy, because before I could hardly survive. Okay, so very, very descriptive. You could feel like you were sitting in the chair with her and you could experience what she was experiencing. And so my tip is I actually tell a lot of stories. Talk about your past, your childhood. It doesn't even necessarily have to be health and fitness related. You're just trying to get people to connect with who you are as a person. And the more they know about you, the more they're connected to you. So I have different themes that I do. I have one for my daughter who has Asperger's, and I title it Kira's Journey in all caps with asterisks around it, so people know that it's about Kira. And I tell the stories about her. I have one that's called Our Story, and it's about me and my husband. So I'll talk about dating days. I'll talk about hard times. And then I have one that's my story. So giving this, people love those. Those are my biggest posts. And I can always sprinkle something into it about coaching or eating right and exercising. So I do that because people like dirt. Dude, seriously, anybody will come for dirt. So they see that title, they're immediately going to read. And the key is like that, to describe it very, very descriptive. So my last biggest one had to do with, I talked about the night our marriage blew up, and it was actually the next day in the bathroom. I described being in the bathroom, trying to get my makeup on. We had to go to a Christmas party, yet I couldn't even stop crying. And so just describing all of these situations where they feel like they can actually visually see what you're going through. Okay, this is one that everybody hates, but this has been my jam. So talk about taboo subjects. This can be a range of things, and we're going to talk about specifics of that. But anything that I feel is taboo by the culture, honestly, just kind of pisses me off, because I don't understand why we have taboo subjects. That's why people are struggling with mental health, in my opinion, is because they feel very isolated. No one talks about depression. No one talks about anxiety. No one talks about suicidal thoughts. No one talks about marriage issues. And it ends up very isolating, and people end up worse off than if everybody would just talk and openly talk about what they struggle with, because then we'd feel like we were never alone and we could reach out for help. So talking about taboo subjects, like I mentioned, it takes away the ability for others to judge you, because they can no longer have dirt on you. You're the one that's already admitting you have the problem. They can't be like, oh my gosh, did you see Jaelyn? I think she's totally struggling. She probably has anxiety. Maybe someone should tell her she really needs help. Like, no, I have anxiety. I'm struggling. I'm trying to get some help. Like, they can no longer judge me because I'm already admitting my issues. It takes the relatability through the roof, because a lot of times people look at us as celebrities in a way, because they feel like our lives are perfect. We have everything under control, and we don't. So when we talk about all these taboo subjects, it takes us off that pedestal again and puts us back to normal human status, which is where you can connect. You can't connect with people who have fake lives or look perfect. It makes us actually distance when we do that. It brings you back to normal human status, which I talked about, and it empowers others to believe that they can change. I think that's the biggest thing, is they see where we are or where we're going, and it gives them hope that they can do the same. If we never talk about it, and we even don't talk about like recent stuff, and we only talk about past stuff before coaching, then it becomes very unrelatable, and they think I can't do that. I relate it very much to when we coach through our journey. I started at my heaviest weight, and coaching through my journey has helped others see that, okay, I can lose 40 pounds because I watched her do it. It's the same with other areas of our life. We're not talking about that. It makes it unrelatable, and they feel like they cannot change as well. So constantly talking about what you're going through, and making sure that you're actually talking about it at a time that you can talk about it, and you actually have something positive to say about it. If you don't have a way to offer hope, you're not ready to share it. So if you're going through it, make sure that you have some sort of spin on hope that people feel like it can empower them to change as well. So these two quotes I really liked. One was by Alanis Morissette, and it said, I found that the more truthful and vulnerable I was, the more empowering it was for me. Brene Brown, again, she says, vulnerability sounds like truth and feels like courage. Truth and courage aren't always comfortable, but they are never weakness. So that was the one that Ashley Malstead talked about. And I liked how she said, we always look for it in others. And we think they're so brave, But as soon as we do it, we think it's weakness. And others like us will see that as brave. So super scary, but I promise it changes everything. And it's totally freed me, like I talked about, to be able to get that off my chest and to feel like I'm an open book. People know my skeletons. I don't have skeletons in the closet because I talk about it. So I can't fear those coming out at any time. Okay, so a lot of people are like, well, what the heck do I even talk about? We all have vulnerable things we can talk about: fears, experiences, weaknesses, secrets, and failures. Okay, we all have those. So I specifically think about my brand, and my brand is definitely geared toward marriage because that's where I was at my point in life when coaching came around, and it saved it. So that is a part of, my brand. So think about your brand and what of these topics can help that become further advanced and build more relationships. She threw away all of her masks and put on her soul. Okay, so quit pretending, quit having facades, be authentically you. And I promise you, like Ashley said, you'll have some people drop off, dude, they're not your tribe, and they're like judger pantses that have their own skeletons and they want to pretend they don't have anything wrong. Let them go. Like, we don't need that in our lives. Like, peace out. The things we do to avoid vulnerability end up causing us more pain than vulnerability itself. And there is a quote in here that is so good. So let me see if I can find it. Okay. You avoid vulnerability to avoid rejection, but all the while you feel highly uncomfortable avoiding emotional vulnerability by trying to be someone you are not. So, do you see the flawed logic with that? You want to avoid discomfort, hence you hide, but the persona you use to hide is the root of your discomfort. Okay? So, with vulnerability, you experience true connection, true love for yourself, and you begin to attract people who are inspired by your openness. So, we already talked about a little bit. Being vulnerable allows you to heal. It allows you to become authentically you, which will attract your tribe. So if you feel like there's like a disconnect between who you want to attract and who you're actually attracting, it's because you're not being authentically you to some degree. So the more you share about yourself, the more you're going to attract the people you want to work with. And that your brand builds your business. So once again, think of your brand and we want your brand to be and talk about those topics of vulnerability that can further expose and build those connections for your brand. So the homework I give my coaches and I did on Lindy's call was identify your 10 quirks and brainstorm your story. Write down a list of fears, failures, weaknesses, and secrets, and incorporate at least one big story each week. Put together a webinar for one of these things, and then create a challenge group for the webinar that you're doing. That's the whole point of the webinar, is to invite to a challenge group utilizing that topic, and you do it with PD being the focus. So find a book that incorporates, so mine is His Needs, Her Needs. So I talk about our marriage issues, we tell our story, and we talk about how His Needs, Her Needs is what really helped us. And I invite them to a challenge group that is specifically geared toward that. And so exercising a meal plan is something that supplements what they're trying to do, which is improve their marriage. Okay, and the last one is be the beacon of light in someone's dark. Be brave enough to share enough, and when you share enough, it will change others' lives. So that's pretty much it. Let me see. How do I get off of this share screen?
Joy is giving you a round of applause. That was incredible.
Good. Dude, seriously, how do I get out of share screen? Where is it? For real?
I don't know. Do you ladies know?
Oh, there it is. Hello, it came up. It was because I had the bar of you guys blocking it. Okay, I'm back.
Perfect. Okay, so we have a couple minutes. I'm not muted. Okay, a couple minutes. Do you have any questions for Jaelyn? Yes, Miranda, go.
I get a question. First of all, thank you for sharing. That was amazing. I would gush more, but there's no time left. How do you handle topics that are going to upset your family? Like, my parents are super conservative, and they are the type of people that don't want anyone to know anything. So how have you kind of navigated talking about hardships in marriage and things like that without kind of freaking your family out? Or have you
question? I didn't realize I had that question, but that's my question too.
Yeah, I don't care. Like if it's between me and my husband, if that's what we're talking about now, if it involves them, I can understand them being a little hesitant. So share anonymously. So you don't need to say, "You guys, my dog. I'm sorry. Someone get the dog." So share anonymously. Like you don't have to say, the situation was your mom and dad. You can say someone close to you. Block them from the post if you need to. But as far as like me and my husband sharing our marriage issues, I don't freaking care what they think. Like I don't, because it's none of their business really. And it's improved our marriage to actually help others. Like it was shocking to see how many people were coming out of the woodwork and thanking us for sharing, which we didn't expect, especially my husband, because he got on a call and divulged way more information than I thought he was going to. And I was like, well, that's good, I guess. Now there is no secrets for sure. But he realized how freeing it was because no longer can anybody use that against him. And he had people stopping him. He had people stopping him at work, men, that tracked down the webinar and thanked him for talking about it. Okay?
Wow.
So for him, he was like, oh, okay, that definitely, there is something to it. So honestly, like it's those people that I'm helping that I'm like, I don't care what you think because these people need our help. So as much as you think I should keep it a secret, these people need our help. So I just don't care.
That's awesome. Thank you for that.
Sorry, what?
She just said thank you. I love the fact, though, that you turn it into an actual challenge group, like with a topic, with personal development. So if there's anything that you ladies can take from this is like, holy hell, like turn it into a challenge group where you can help more. And I love that you always say, obviously the core of it is the nutrition fitness. Like that's obviously implemented. But if you think about it, if we focus on those other things, all of that is going to come full circle.
Yep. The whole point of my challenge groups is to groom them into what we do as coaches to begin with. And personal development is usually the only thing that's lacking in challenge groups to show people what we do as coaches. So if that is the main focus, and let's be honest, that is what changes our whole entire lives as a coach. As much as the nutrition and the meal plan supplement that, it's the mindset shift we have because of PD. So if we can incorporate that and get them to see the changes in their mind, they're going to have the changes in their body from incorporating the meal plan and whatever. It's going to improve their mindset as well. But changing that through PD is what gets people to easily convert over to coaches because they can see why it's a benefit. And then it also helps them let go of their demons. So it just changes their lives completely. And that's the whole point. And if you can get to do that quickly, it's easier to get people to stick around.
Totally. I love it. Any last questions for Jaelyn? I can just say thank you. I mean, thank you for stepping up. I mean, I know you had slides because you've obviously presented on this before, but I love the topic. I love anything by Brene Brown, I'm always just sucked in because it is such a taboo thing, talking about vulnerability. And all of you coaches have done it because you've gotten this far. But I love, Jaelyn, that you take it one step further. I love how much Greg is obviously involved with this. So other than that, thank you. Thank you.
Can I ask something real quick?
Yeah.
This is Yana, sorry. I'm on vacation, but I hopped on because I love this topic and thank you so much. I don't know if you saw the message. Jaelyn, do you build both your like and personal? Just because I'm finding that I totally think I do some of what you're doing. I think I can take it to the next level. But I'm just wondering if you found it easier to be more vulnerable on one page or the other, or is it just something that you've made a decision just to do? Does that make sense? Because I find myself being very vulnerable on my like page, but not so much my personal. I think that I do a little bit of both, but I'm kind of with some other people. I still think 5 years into the business, I still have some ideas of what some people, family members quote, you know what I mean? So I'm just curious what you think about that.
No, I actually suck at my like page. I've got to figure that out. Like I copy and paste. I go to my personal page. I'm still in my warm market. So it's on my personal page that happens and I copy it over to my like page and I do like boost the events when I do my webinars so I can reach more cold market people and expand my network that way. But this is still in my warm market. Like, and I have family members that don't love it. And I've had a sister-in-law I was super close to, like, is weird now. I don't care. Like it just shows me how fake that relationship was, which makes me extremely sad. But
yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate. How long have you been a coach? Like 2.5 years, 3 years?
2 years in January.
Wow. Okay. Thank you so much. I really got a lot out. Okay. I'll be quiet now.
Jaelyn, is there any last things you want to share?
No, just find your demon and share it.
I love that. Thank you so much. Thanks, ladies, for popping on. Thanks for your questions. But thank you again, Jaelyn. You all have an amazing, amazing day, and I'll talk to you all very soon, okay?
See ya.
Bye, ladies.